Clint Eastwood and Elvis Presley met at a shooting range in Los Angeles on October 8, 1960. A few hours of solitude from the world that was attempting to shape them into something they weren't sure they wanted to be was what two guys at the start of illustrious careers were looking for. One of the most surprising friendships in Hollywood history resulted from what began with the sound of gunfire. The San Francisco Angeles shooting range. You wouldn't expect to see movie stars in the Fernando Valley. It was a straightforward establishment that was well liked by both serious shooters and law enforcement. People did not come to be seen, but to practice. There were severe rules at the range. No interruptions, no photos, no signatures. One of the few spots in Los Angeles where you could be who you were without thinking about who might be looking was there. Elvis had found the range several months prior. Since his service days, he had been collecting firearms and had grown to truly appreciate the design and operation of many weapons. More than that, though, he found that shooting helped him de-stress. He concentrated on breath control, trigger pull, and the delightful ring of metal on metal when a shot went through when he was at the range. He wasn't. The phenomena is Elvis Presley. He was merely a man attempting to hit a target with a gun. Elvis showed there early that October morning at 7:00 a.m., when the range was often deserted but for a few regulars. He paid for his lane and ammunition, set up his targets downrange, and signed in using a fictitious identity that he employed in locations like this. He was around 20. A few minutes into his practice, he heard someone move into the adjacent lane. Elvis caught a glimpse of a face he recognized from television as he nodded to acknowledge the other shooter. Clint Eastwood, a struggling actor attempting to break into larger roles, was 3 years older than Elvis. He had been making cameos in TV westerns, and he recently got a regular part in the Rawhide series. He wasn't yet renowned in the same sense as Elvis, but there was something about him, a quiet confidence in his demeanor, an intensity in his eyes. Clint had arrived at the range for utilitarian purposes. He discovered that performers who appeared most at ease with firearms were the ones who truly understood how to handle them, which was necessary for Western parts that demanded convincing gun handling. 4 months, he had been visiting this range to hone his draw speed, his aim, as well as his familiarity with various weapons. The two men gave each other a slight nod, which is what males do when they are in a common area but don't want to bother each other. Then both of them turned to fire at their targets. Their only means of communication for half an hour was the cadence of their gunshots. After firing his 6 shots, Elvis would reload and fire once more. Clint would carry out the same, his motions crisp and economical. It had an almost contemplative quality. Two men, each immersed in his own world but strangely linked by their same experience, concentrated on the same straightforward task. Elvis noticed Clint had stopped shooting and was inspecting his target as he was reloading after finishing a round. Every shot was contained within a little circle in the middle of the tight cluster. It was the type of precision that resulted from thousands of practice hours. Elvis found himself talking without giving it any thought. Had some excellent shooting. Clint turned, seeming a little taken aback to be called out. "Thank you," he said. He spoke in a calm, measured tone. "You're not bad yourself," he continued after a pause. It was a brief conversation that amounted to little more than acknowledgement, but it helped to break the ice. Elvis grinned. "I'm getting better, but I've got a ways to go to shoot like that." "It's just practice," Clint remarked. After pausing, he inquired, "You're Elvis Presley, right?" "Yes," Elvis replied, preparing for what typically followed. The thrill, inquiries about music, and requests for autographs or anecdotes about meeting celebrities. Clint, however, merely nodded. "I thought so. My name is Clint Eastwood. I am aware. On Rawhide, I've seen you. You're doing fine." "Thank you." Then he said, "But I've got a ways to go to act like you," with a faint smile. Realizing that his own remarks were being replayed for him, Elvis laughed. "Is that a joke? Did you just joke?" With a deadpan expression and amused eyes, Clint remarked. "I've been known to occasionally." And with that, the discussion began. It wasn't the usual Hollywood discussion about agreements, agents, and who was working on what. Two men were discussing firearms, their various calibers and systems, and what made one more dependable than the other. After reloading, they both returned to shooting, but now they were shooting together, sometimes offering advice or making comments on one another's form. Clint demonstrated to Elvis how to regulate his breathing for steady aim. Elvis demonstrated to Clint a quick draw technique that he had picked up from a Memphis gun collector. They both ran out of ammunition an hour later. When they arrived in the parking lot after walking to the range office together to settle in, neither of them appeared to be quite prepared to end the engagement. "You want to grab some coffee?" Elvis inquired. After giving it some thought, Clint nodded. "Yeah, all right." A few blocks away, they discovered a diner that served coffee in thick white mugs and had dilapidated vinyl seats. For the first several minutes, they sat across from one another and simply drank their coffee in cozy quiet. Clint finally said anything. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," Elvis replied. "How do you deal with it?" Clint inquired. "The fame, I mean the way everyone wants a piece of you." Elvis recognized something in the question and turned to face him. This was an idle interest. This individual was attempting to comprehend what might be in store for him. Elvis admitted, "I'm still working that out. There are days that are better than others. On certain days, I feel as though I'm drowning in it and have forgotten who I was before everything began." Clint gave a slow nod. "I'm scared about that. I want to succeed and make amazing movies, but I also see what happens to those who allow it to utterly alter them. Finding spaces where you can be who you are is the key," Elvis added, picking his words carefully. "There are places like the shooting range where no one is interested in your identity or activities. All that matters to them is that you respect the place and abide by the rules." "Do you shoot for that reason?" Clint inquired. Elvis said, "Partially, but also because I'm not thinking about anything else when I'm focused on a target, trying to control my breath and my hand and hit exactly where I'm aiming. Just the target, not the next show, not the critics, not the individuals who like or dislike me." Clint grasped it right away. "I do it for the same reason. That and the westerns, that is. Playing a cowboy is impossible if you unable to wield a gun." Elvis grinned. "Those westerns will suit you well. You have the appropriate appearance for it. The whole forceful, silent thing, the calm intensity." Clint responded, "That's not an act. I am that way. I'm not too talkative." Elvis remarked, "I noticed. I enjoy it. The majority of this town's residents never stop talking. They are constantly on and performing. It wears you out." Clint said, "You perform all the time, too." "On the stage?" "Yes, that is distinct. It's music. I adore that. However, the rest of it, the parties, the interviews, and all that Hollywood stuff, is not who I am. I'm simply a Mississippi kid who enjoys singing, shooting firearms, and being by myself." Occasionally, Clint gave a little salute, lifting his coffee mug. "I'll have a drink to that." For an additional hour, they sat there discussing their early years, their professional goals, and the peculiar feeling of having your face turned into public property. They discussed the pressure to uphold a certain image, to be what people expect, and to never display fear, doubt, or vulnerability. "The hardest part is that you can't really talk to anyone," Elvis remarked softly. "Regarding it. Not your old pals, who don't know what this life is like, and not your new friends from Hollywood, half of whom are in competition with you and the other half of whom want something from you. So, even in a room full of people, you end up alone," Clint added. "Yes, just that." Clint held out his hand to stop Elvis from reaching for the check after they had finished their coffee. Clint said, "Let's split it. Equal." Elvis knew what he was talking about. This was not a well-known somebody purchasing coffee for a lesser-known individual. This was a dinner shared by two equals. "Agree," said Elvis. Elvis paused and turned to face Clint as they made their way back to their automobiles. "Hello, I have a present for you." "Wait a moment." He went to open the trunk of his car. There was a wooden case within. When Elvis opened it, he saw a well-kept Colt single-action army revolver, similar to those used in the Old West and ideal for Clint's aspirations as a cowboy. Elvis said, "I want you to have this." Clint gazed at the firearm. "I can't, Elvis. It must be worth it. I'm not requesting that you purchase it. You're getting it from me. Consider it a friendship present." Clint stated, "We just met." Elvis then answered, "You simply know sometimes. I felt more like myself today than I have in months when chatting over coffee at the range. That has some value. Actually, that's worth a lot." Clint glanced at Elvis, then at the gun. At last, he gave a nod. "Thank you. I'll handle it well." "I'm sure you will," said Elvis. After shaking hands, Clint said something that shocked them both. "We ought to repeat this at some point. I mean, the coffee and the shooting." "That would be nice," Elvis responded. And they did. Nor frequently nor on any schedule, but every few months, Clint and Elvis would end themselves chatting about their lives over coffee after spending a few hours shooting at the same gun range. Planet was never contacted beforehand. As if they were on the same frequency, one of them would simply appear, and frequently the other would follow suit. They never participated in photo shoots or public appearances, nor did they attend Hollywood parties together. They were pals in the cafe and the shooting range were both peaceful places where they could simply be two men who understood one another's unique form of loneliness. Those meetings had even greater value as their careers took off, with Clint becoming one of the world's top movie stars and Elvis becoming the king of rock and roll. They served as a reminder that, despite their notoriety and public identities, they were still just the two men who had first met in 1960 at a shooting range. Later, Clint claimed to have learned from Elvis something important about being famous. That you needed to figure out how to maintain your sense of reality and to recall who you were before society dictated your ideal self. That the person beneath didn't have to be consumed by the picture you projected. Clint's example taught Elvis that you didn't have to give everything to everyone. That quiet dignity was a form of strength in and of itself. That you could be well-known and prosperous while maintaining your privacy and boundaries. Years later, Clint would always respond politely and cautiously when interviewers inquired about Elvis. He would remark that Elvis was a friend. A true friend, not a friend from Hollywood. We were able to understand one another. He never shared anecdotes about their time together or disclosed what they discussed at those diners or what Elvis may have shared with him. Their friendship was successful precisely because of their loyalty and respect for one another's privacy. One of Clint's most treasured belongings was the fabled revolver Elvis handed him on that first day. He never showed it in public or utilized it in movies. It remained in a private collection as a memento of a friendship that was not well known, a relationship between two men who recognized something fundamental in one another and discovered one another in the most improbable of places. Clint was one of the few celebrities in Hollywood that refrained from discussing Elvis in interviews or sharing his recollections with the public after his death in 1977. Quietly, he went to the funeral, paid his respects, and departed. Their friendship had always been based on respect, and this was exactly what Elvis would have wanted. Continue. The tale of Elvis and Clint's friendship serves as a reminder that sometimes the deepest bonds form in the most private settings, when we are free to be who we truly are and let our public selves shine. It demonstrates that genuine friendship doesn't require attention or approval from other people. All it takes is two people who respect each other's desire for privacy and tranquility, who can communicate in silence just as easily as they can with words. Elvis and Clint discovered a tiny haven in each other's company, a place where they could let down their guard and recall their true selves in a world that continuously demands performance and exposure. More uncommon than any celebrity or wealth is the kind of friendship based on respect and understanding. Please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe if this tale of unanticipated friendship, respect for one another, and discovering connection in quiet moments touched you. Show this video to a person who recognizes the importance of having friends who allow you to be who you are. Have you ever made pals in the most unlikely of places? Tell us in the comments section.